Okay, I will call the meeting to order at 5:07. First order of business is approval of the agenda. But before we do that, there's been a updated addition to the agenda. We're going to list it as item.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. At the beginning of the agenda, we do have to read the treaty at the beginning on the script, please.
Yes, I did forget that. Yes. As we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge that the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. Okay, item 2, the approval of the agenda. So there is an addition to the agenda.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I don't mean to interrupt, but there's some information on the script for you to read regarding time limits for this evening's meeting. So if you can kind of refer to that as you're going along, it will help you.
I don't have that up right now.
Okay. I can read that out. One moment.
Sure.
Committee members, we would like to remind everyone that there is a hard cutoff time of 6:30 as the city clerk needs to open the next WebEx forum for another committee meeting at 7 p.m. Just be mindful of the time, and if we can utilize the time wisely and get through the items as efficiently and smoothly as possible, it'd be greatly appreciated. Over to you, Chair.
Okay. So the addition to the agenda will appear as item 7.6 from Kevin Montgomery regarding his resignation as the Cycling Advisory Committee member of the Transit Citizens Advisory Committee. So that's going to appear at 7.6 on the agenda. Next item, declaration of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I'm sorry, through you, Chair. We do need to have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Move. Councillor Santos, happy to move.
Okay. Any objections to this move?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, the motion is approved. The agenda will be amended. Next item 3, declaration of interest under Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Is there any declaration of members tonight?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, we will move on to item 4, the previous minutes. Previous minutes were approved by council from the February 18th meeting. They were approved by council on February 26, 2020. Is there any concerns or issues with the previous minutes?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we see none for the previous minutes. They were approved. Next is item 5.1, a delegation by Richard Williams, Brampton resident, regarding Tour de Trump cycling event.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Council and Brampton Cycling Advisory Committee for the opportunity to share with you an idea that was brainstormed pretty much at the end of September, and had the confidence enough to reach out to the Mayor of Brampton, Mr. Patrick Brown, to share this idea, and he thought it was quite interesting, and there might be some synergies with what's going on in the city. I am a resident of Brampton. I live in Ward 2 in the Heart Lake area, and came up with this idea after a little bit of a bicycling accident. Next slide. All right, so you can actually go to the next slide. Thank you. So you're probably asking yourself, you know, what is the history on this concept of this bike ride called the Tour de Bramp? So about a year ago, I had the opportunity of going to Africa, Kenya, Africa, and stopped in a place called Amsterdam, Netherlands. And when I arrived in Amsterdam, I was amazed to see how many bicycles there were. If you can see the image there of bicycles, just bicycle after bicycle stacked upon each other. I personally grew up in Mississauga, spent some time in the US, lived in Brantford, Ontario, and then moved 2 years ago here to Brampton in the Heart Lake area. And one thing that I noticed when I moved to Brampton was that we had beautiful areas to ride bicycles that I wasn't able to ride when I lived in other places. And bicycling was something that, because of COVID, actually started to pick up, and I saw lots of families and different individuals of all different socioeconomical statuses riding bicycles. So the concept was really birthed from my visit to Amsterdam and because of COVID and me starting to ride a bit more. But we know with cycling, it's really great for the health of the total population. It's an inclusive event. So regardless of where you are in life, you can ride, or where you're from. It really promotes unity and also a green environment and safety. Next slide, please. Perfect. So when we look at the state of affairs, right now with COVID, you know, a lot of different industries are going down, but biking just seems to be growing. If you look at the top on the left-hand side, you'll see actually the stocks of Canadian Tire, and we can see that just rising throughout our time going through this COVID crisis. And also right beside it on the right is Giant, the manufacturer of many bicycles and bicycle parts. And you can see their stocks going through the roof. So from a commercial standpoint, cycling is attractive, it is growing. We know, because we're all cyclists, that it promotes health. So we know obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, asthma, COPD, you know, these are on the rise, and even in our population here. So physical health promotion is definitely key. Mental health is also something that is on the increase. About 3.5 weeks ago, I was riding my bike in Heart Lake, going down some off-road paths, and I actually had an accident. It's probably hard to see, but I have a little bit of a nick here. I had some stitches. But when I had this accident, I actually had to go to William Osler and spend some time in the ER. And what I noticed in the ER is that many of the residents of Brampton were in there for mental health issues, whether it was suicide, anxiety, depression, and there's lots of social workers in there. And I said, you know what? This COVID is actually creating lots of mental health challenges. I mean, I hear it where I live, with people driving cars fast and speeding and loud and excessive music, and even we know that the increase of drug use and alcoholism is also on the increase. So crime is also, unfortunately, a byproduct of this crisis. And for the youth and the young adults in the city, you know, about 2 weeks ago, I was just watching the news and seeing how many gun violence and issues that are happening in Toronto, in the GTA, and even in Brampton. So there is a need for the youth to see some mentorship, whether it be passive role modeling and mentorship through different organizations in the city, whether it be the police force, whether it be EMS, whether it be the hospital, whether it be us as citizens of Brampton. But there is an opportunity for some mentorship there. And then also with green transportation, we know cities are all looking for ways of lowering emissions. And what better way than to do that through riding bicycles and walking more. Next slide, please. All right. So as I've kind of alluded to, you know, we know the reason why cycling is a good thing. It's a lifelong activity really anyone can do. You can be of all different, different socioeconomical statuses, just getting by or super wealthy, all people can ride bicycles. It also, having an event that I'm going to talk about in a minute, like this would really help to showcase our active transportation project with the east-west corridor that the city is working on. We could actually use that to educate, to actually use that as part of the Tour de Brant route. So we could actually showcase how beautiful this will be for biking. Also promoting safety, and also what I think is really key here, being a new resident to Brampton, I didn't realize how beautiful Brampton was before I moved here. And there's all these different cities around us, whether it be Caledon, whether it be Bolton, whether it be Georgetown or Mississauga. And a lot of these cyclists drive through our area or ride through our area. And it would be nice to showcase how great this is a place to ride bicycles with also our surrounding communities. Next slide, please. All right, so without further ado, the event that I'm proposing is an event called Tour de Bramp, and I kind of take it from the Tour de France. I kind of ripped that event idea. And what this would be is an annual one-day event that could be hosted in the city of Brampton. It could be really on any Saturday. It would be an event from the morning around 11 a.m. till 5 p.m. We could have, as a community, an event day that would start off with a tour expo of maybe obstacle courses and bike clinics and different exhibitors that are associated or affiliated with cycling that could set up. We could also have, a kickoff with the mayor welcoming everybody. And also we could have different organizations there teaching people how to ride bicycles and how to fix bicycles and tuning up the bikes as well, and then helmet safety. Then the tour would move into a 10K tour, which would be 2 hours. We would give the participants of the tour to ride. And this ride is a community ride, so it's all different types of bicycles except for motorized and e-bikes, but we would welcome all bikes, we would welcome all ages, we'd welcome really BMX, road bikes, mountain bikes, hybrids, and it would be on pavement that everyone would ride. We could start off in a place like Loafers Lake. I know we have a new Loafers Lake community center that is going to be opening fairly soon, so maybe that would be a great way to kind of kick off that and showcasing that, and then having people move into either trails or into roads. For this event, I think it would be ideal for that new corridor to be blocked off for the portion of the tour so that you could have as many people going through on the tour as possible. And then it would end with a commencement celebration where we'd have all participants that took part in this. They would come, they would actually get a yellow t-shirt, sort of like the Tour de France, that you've accomplished it. It would have the logo of the Tour de Bramp. It would have the logo of the Tour de Bramp. It would have the different sponsors on the back. And this would be really a day to celebrate biking in the community, to celebrate the community riding, to showcase our new corridor, and also to promote health and wellness in the community. We would also have maybe a DJ, a food truck, maybe some light entertainment. But that's kind of a nutshell of how I envision the possible event. And it is something that we can invite different stakeholders to be a part of. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about stakeholders or partners. Really, you would want there the hospital and specifically the ER department that's seeing people that get hurt from bike riding. Maybe there's health promotion people in the hospital that want to be a part of it. I think key having there would be the police force and also the EMS there to do some outreach and some community engagement. Then all of the different cycling associations and clubs, and I don't have them all listed here because I'm new to Brampton. It's funny, when I started to build this deck, I was like, wow, there's so many different resources here, but you know, Brampton Cycle Club, Ontario Cycling Association, Pedal Heads. Pedal Heads is absolutely wonderful. It's something I think they should have in Brampton if it's not available. Last year, I had my daughter drive to Mississauga to take part in that, where they teach you how to ride a bicycle. And then also there's a new bike club down in Toronto called the Mandem Cycling Club, I believe they call themselves, where there are a lot of Afro Caribbean males that are riding bicycles in Toronto and trying to promote that in the Black community. And then also Peel Multicultural Council, and then all the different vendors, whether it be Giant, whether it be Swin.
Just a point of order. It's Councillor Santos. Hi, Richard.
Yes.
I just want to, because with all due respect, delegations are timed at 5 minutes, and unfortunately we have a cap time till 6:30, and we've got a lot of other things to go through the agenda. Just wondering if you could very quickly go through, because I don't know if any of the other members have questions, but I think your time has run out.
Thank you, Councillor, and that's in closing. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Ronnie Gill. Richard, this is awesome what you're presenting.
Thank you.
But I have a quick question. I know you say you're new to Brampton. Are you familiar with Bike the Creek?
No, I'm not. Is this something similar?
Well, in my head, I was thinking it's something similar. So my question was, would this be in addition to Bike the Creek, or maybe someone should bring in the loop to say, hey, Bike the Creek already exists, like something like this already exists, so would be like combined, your idea with that? Like, you know, I'm sure we can have those discussions afterwards.
Or it could be independent, but very good input. Just so everyone knows, the last slide, I don't want to take up very much more time, but it actually has a breakdown of the team structure of who would own the event. And sorry, it's the one more slide up right there. The event team structure, it kind of speaks to who would own the event and how we could engage different stakeholders.
So if I'm not mistaken, I think Bike the Creek is owned by the City of Brampton. Please help me correct that statement if I'm wrong. Anyone, someone?
I believe the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority is the stakeholder.
It's Dale here. It is actually a partnership amongst Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, City of Brampton, City of Mississauga, Town of Caledon, and Region Appeal.
Perfect. So I appreciate everyone's time. I'm sorry for going over time, but I just wanted to share this potential proposed event that might be of interest, and I'd be happy to help in planning of something like this if this is something you guys want to move forward with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. That was my fault. There was a notation somewhere along the way that your delegation was 15 minutes long. But if you were finished, appreciate your delegation. Can I have a motion to accept Mr. Williams' delegation?
I move to accept.
Anybody opposed?
Seeing none opposed, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next item is item 6.1 on the agenda. A verbal update from Nelson Cadet, Project Manager, Active Transportation, regarding the implementation of active transportation infrastructure within the city road allowance. Nelson, you have the floor.
Go ahead, Nelson. Your microphone is active and on. Nelson, we're not hearing you at the moment. I do see your microphone is on and it is active. I don't know if there was any settings that have been changed on your computer since we did a test before the meeting started.
Maybe Henrik or Tamara can kind of get started while Nelson figures out the connection issue. Peter, it looks like Nelson is in. There we go.
Hi, Tammy. It's Henrik here. I'm just speaking to Nelson right now. He's trying to figure out his audio connection.
So perhaps, Mr. Chair, to be helpful, committee could either stand this item down momentarily. There's a few other business items under item 7 that committee could go to and then come back to this item once we get Nelson's audio connections confirmed.
Okay.
It also appears that Nelson is under the attendee list as well. I'm not sure if maybe that's an issue. He's under participant and attendee.
Okay, Nelson, you're in the system twice. Can you just unmute? I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, Peter. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Sorry about that, everyone. So, are we going to proceed? Are we going to? Okay. Sorry, just let me get my slide deck. Are we still here?
Yes.
You're on the first slide.
That's actually the last slide. The first slide is the graphic. Yeah, here we go. Great, that's the first slide. Thank you very much. Okay, so at one of the subcommittee meetings that over the summer, I had agreed to add this as an update to our next or our first formal BSAC agenda. And really what this is it's a report that was presented to council in August of this year, but it provides a really good update on the ATMP and an overview of its first year of implementation. So it was endorsed in 2019, about this time last year. So it's a good really overview of that first year of implementation. The initiatives, however, outlined within the report are very infrastructure focused, and the reality this year is that there hasn't been much done by way of programming, and perhaps maybe a future update from our community partners such as Bike Brampton, and the work they're doing with Bicycle Works would be a more meaningful update from a programming piece anyways. The next slide, please. So before we get going on the update, I want to talk about the backdrop of my slides. They're all pictures of cycling infrastructure that I recently took, and it's infrastructure that's either has been constructed or is currently under construction. And what I plan to quickly do is try to incorporate some of these into the discussion as well, so you get an idea of what's happening out there, both from the actual logistical pieces in the office as well as a look of what is happening out in the street as well, because a lot of them are kind of hidden little projects, but big improvements or quick wins from an ATMP perspective. For instance, this is actually Don Doan Recreational Trail. It's along the north side of Queen Street, east of Glenvale Boulevard. And it was actually built as a part of a maintenance project on that retaining wall. So you see that sort of that pinkish colored retaining wall. It was being reconstructed along an adjacent street, Greenwich Circle. And as a part of that project, there was an opportunity to replace an existing sidewalk along this section of Don Don Recreational Trail with the multi-use path. So definitely a quick win in providing that connection through an existing construction opportunity. So hopefully that works, having these little tidbits and these little descriptions of pieces of infrastructure that have been constructed, because it's a good look at and it opens up sort of discussion about what's being out there, being constructed out there. So back to the report. Next slide, please. So the intent of the report was to provide clarity to council on how the active transportation infrastructure is being implemented in the city. Included within the report is a quick overview of the ATMP implementation strategy, an update on the east-west cycling corridor, and a go-forward approach. I think the biggest piece that was included within this report, and probably of more value to the committee as well, is that it's going to provide some specific examples of what has been planned, designed, and constructed over the last year. So next slide. So this backdrop is a picture of Howden Boulevard at Dixie Road. This is, and it illustrates one of the discussions we had over the summer about that solid line and the compliance with those issues of vehicles crossing those lines and crossing into the bike lane, merging into the bike lane before they make their right turn. This in the top right corner of the picture shows you that enforcement sign. So we had discussions about that was one of the pieces that was missing. That being said, they're all in place now. We continue to have some compliance issues, and we're working on an education campaign. We hope to have something in place in a tax bill sent out to close to 140,000 homes that helps communicate, what that driver behavior is when you're turning right across a bike lane. So we're hoping that's going to help with the education piece. Two, it was a suggestion actually from our traffic operations group that we include new signs. So I don't know if the committee's familiar with them, but they're signs that are typically put at the installation of new traffic control signals and stop signs, but they basically look like a sun type thing, and they say new in the middle of it. So we're going to try that as a tactic to try to raise awareness to this regulatory sign and really instruction, driver behavior instruction at each one of these intersections. So again, next slide. So again, back to the report. Within the report, there is a description of the ATMP implementation strategy, and sort of as a reminder to the committee, the ATMP implementation strategy was really three buckets or three programs. The Fixit program, which includes improvements and enhancements to existing facilities that improve the existing active transportation network. It's expected to be completed over the next 10 years. It's a low-cost solution, which includes like curb cuts, proper crossings, wayfinding signage, and hopefully will yield noticeable improvements for sort of the end user. The second bucket or program is planned construction opportunities to coordinate implementation of cycling facilities are identified by comparing candidate cycling network routes against the City of Brampton's Capital Works program for road projects, incorporating cycling project into existing road reconstruction projects, and the annual road resurfacing program or project is a part of a complete streets approach to designing and enhancing road corridors for all users. And finally, the infill program, in addition to cycling and trail projects being delivered through a coordinated capital program, standalone dedicated infill projects are needed in order to achieve the Plan 2040 network. An analysis was completed as a part of the ATMP to understand what parts of the city have the greatest cycling potential and therefore the greatest need for the infill infrastructure. Next slide, please. This is an example of a Fixit project. This is the Fletcher's Creek Recreational Trail crossing at Queen Mary Drive. This crossing was actually installed as a part of a 2019 road resurfacing project, but similar designs are being completed for 30 other similar locations. Next slide, please. So again, that first implementation bucket was the Fixit program. In 2019, a $2 million project budget was established to address the ATMP's Fixit program. Again, it focuses on enhancing existing AT network by completing these critical gaps. Here you see a listing of some of these improvements that were undertaken in 2019, as well as what we've got planned for 2020. Some highlights for the 2019 work. Kennedy Road, the signalized crossing of the Etobicoke Creek Trail. It was a separate capital project, but still identified as one of those critical pieces as a Fixit. Smaller scaled, school crossings. One of the unique things about Brampton and the GTA was that we weren't, installing curb depressions at school crossings. So we're going through now retrofitting and upgrading or enhancing all of those crossings. And here's, an example of 6 or 7 of those. In addition to that, PXOs along our major trail systems have been installed at 3 locations. Along Heart Lake Road, Wanless, and Financial Drive, pavement markings have been introduced into the existing multi-use paths that are properly illustrating use and function. So they'll have, arrow signs to signify bidirectional movement and also identify uses for both a pedestrian use with the symbol, a pedestrian symbol, and a bicycle use with the bicycle symbol. And the last piece, Heart Lake Road, buffered bike lanes were installed. And that's a part of the Fixit program because Heart Lake Road makes up a portion of that B loop, and that's identified within the Fixit program as a Fixit program in itself. So for 2020, we're working on 5 traffic control signal crossings at recreational trails, similar to that Kennedy Road signalized crossing. The majority of them are up along the Flower City Trail, adjacent to that Trans-Canada pipeline. They require a little bit more permit and permissions from the Trans-Canada pipeline, so it's taking a little longer of a time frame, but we're working through those. We're also working at approximately 30 designs for pedestrian crossovers. So again, these are where these recreational trails meet collector type roads like the Queen Mary Drive, so similar to the illustration that's on the backdrop here. As well as 17 more school crossings. So those are all were planned for 2020, but given the pandemic, we're not sure if we're going to be able to realize or maybe just get through the design stages for a lot of this work. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of Wanless Drive and McLaughlin Road. This road reconstruction project, McLaughlin between Wanless and Mayfield, includes proper bicycle crossings. Here's an example of one at Wanless. You can see that that paved portion there is specifically intended for bicycle use, separating bicycles from pedestrians and aligning them properly opposite, the cycle track or the cross ride. Next slide, please. So the second ATMP implementation program mentioned earlier involved taking advantage of existing planned construction opportunities. So in 2011, Council approved the direction that consideration of bicycle facilities be incorporated into all planned construction opportunities, such as the annual road resurfacing program, the development and review process, bridge and road reconstruction projects, including environmental assessments, etc. This direction was then carried through the ATMP as a recommendation. And next slide. Oh, I think it's the same slide. I can't see the screen. Tammy, is it? Sorry, can we back up one more slide? Sorry. So here's the examples of of what has been completed in 2019 and what we're planning for 2020. So some highlights on what was completed in 2019. The Region Appeal taking advantage of an existing road resurfacing program along Bovaird, provided a crossing for our Fletcher's Creek recreational trail. There was a cross ride implemented along Queen Street as a part of the James and John realignment. We've got buffered bicycle lanes on Central Park, included within the 2019 road resurfacing program. A number of school crossings, again, incorporated into the road resurfacing, the 2019 road resurfacing program. A number of curb depressions, urban shoulders at King Knoll, financial drive through the development application, another example of a cross ride, mid-block cross ride for the
excuse me, Nelson?
Yeah.
Nelson?
Yes.
We have a request from Councillor Santos to speak right now.
Sure.
I could wait until after the presentation. No worries.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So moving on to 2020, we've got, as a part of the road resurfacing program, a number of curb depressions. We've got 5 school crossings, 11.6 kilometers of new bicycle lanes and urban shoulders, including within the road resurfacing, as well as 4.2 kilometers of proposed new boulevard multi-use paths along McLaughlin Road, which is, I would say, 80% completed. I encourage everyone to pay a visit. It's pretty cool stuff. Humber West Parkway hasn't quite started yet, and Castlemore Road, the south side, including the multi-use path, has been completed. Again, I encourage you to visit because it's the latest examples of what we're doing from a multi-use path and cross ride applications. So next slide. So this is a rendering from the east-west cycling corridor. This is actually Baden Street. So next slide. I'm having some difficulty. So coordinating between my presentation and this. So the final ATMP implementation program is that infill program. $1.875 million from a 2018 operating budget surplus was allocated to a project budget to implement this east-west cycling route, also referred to as the Big Ask. So this is an example of the temporary bike lanes, the COVID bike lanes. Next slide. So by way of an update, or sort of an update of the duration of the project to date. I think that was one of the big asks over the summer, is to get an idea of where we are with the project. I thought I'd go through and provide a chronology of where we were and where we're going. So on April 18th, we implemented the temporary bike lanes along Baden and Howden, using construction barrels and temporary signage to provide a safe connection for people on bicycle to essential amenities during the pandemic. Also to provide access to city's recreational trails, primarily the Silvercoat Creek Trail and the Esker Lake Trail. Along a portion of in May 22nd, along the portion of the east-west cycling corridor, Howden Boulevard, the barrels were removed and replaced with interim painted lanes. Later that month, we held our virtual stakeholder workshop, which included councillors, municipal staff, and the cycling community. In June, we went live with an online digital survey. We emailed pamphlets to over 4,000 homes, directing residents to participate in that online survey. The survey closed at the end of July with over 260 people participating. In August of this year, the temporary bike lanes were fully transitioned from the construction barrels to the painted bike lanes. The interim bike lanes by painting the interim bike lanes, we're moving the project closer to the final design while saving costs, as the construction barrels were being leased on a monthly basis. By way of design, the detailed design for the ultimate condition, we're at about 90%. We're anticipating completion at the end of November. The project has been modified somewhat, and that's why the design has taken so long. The most recent has a multi-use path and bicycle lanes on a section of Howden Boulevard. As you may recall from that original stakeholder workshop, we were proposing a multi-use path on Howden, but given that, you know, the feedback we received from the summer consultation and the workshop and further recommendations from our traffic operations staff, we're proceeding with a design that will include both on-street bicycle lanes as well as the multi-use path. The design and tender process we anticipate will be several months to complete. There's a number of maintenance activities planned along these sections of road, which all require coordination to construct that ultimate design. Next slide, please. And I'm guessing, is it, can't see it here, it is, perfect. So since the implementation of the interim bike lanes, traffic services staff have been monitoring the usage of the lanes. From April to July of this year, there's been more of a doubling of the traffic volume. So looking at the graph, what we've done is we actually had, whether it was a tube or a camera that was installed for a week in April, May, and June. And what we did was we took an average of those daily volumes for the bicycle traffic within the lanes, and we plotted it over at 3 different locations. So the locations were Vauden Street East, and that's in and around Ken Woodlands Drive. Then Vauden Street West, which is closer to the Lorraine on Howden, and then as well as on Howden Boulevard, and that would have been east of Dixie. So you can see that there's been some significant increases in usage. Kudos to you people, because I'm sure you're primary users, but it's definitely taken on some serious ridership. So that's a good news story for sure. So the next series of slides are really details of the actual design. I wanted to give you a full update on this east-west cycling corridor. So this is what we're looking at and currently reviewing with the 90% submission. A couple of things I wanted to highlight with this design. One is the treatment in front of bus stops. That's that hashed green. So those dashed green squares, and really they're there to draw awareness to the users of the bicycle lane that this is an area that we could see, you know, a bus, proceeding to the curb to load or pick up or offload and load a bus. Another key feature is that solid green application that's being reserved for larger driveways and intersections. And the third point I want to sort of draw attention to, or treatment I want to draw attention to the stop bar. So if you can look at the intersection of Main Street and look at maybe the eastbound approach on Main Street, you notice where the bicycle lane is and the stop bar requirements, a little bit ahead of the regular car stop bar. And that's purposely done, again, to just increase the visibility of the cyclist when you're stopped at an intersection. So that's, you know, that's a pending guideline coming from the most recent update to Book 18. So next slide. Hopefully we're caught up. What I want to draw attention to here is this sort of the bottom half of the design drawing that shows curb depression. So where it says Vauden Street, that's more or less the location where the Etobicoke Creek Trail crosses the Vauden Street bike lanes. Those curbs will be depressed and access provided to the Etobicoke Creek Trail from the Vauden Street bicycle lane, so creating somewhat of a little bicycle interchange at that location. Next slide. Quickly, a different intersection type treatment. Again, still consistent with OTM Book 18, but if you look at the intersection of Cumberland Drive, you can see a different approach to the to carry the bicycle lanes through the intersection, still drawing awareness that there is a continuous bike lane through those smaller intersections or driveways. Next slide. Quickly, there's a left turn treatment for Rutherford. So the top half of the design drawing, if you look at the intersection of Rutherford and Bodden, we're introducing 2-stage left turns and the use of queue boxes. So if you can imagine traveling sort of left to right across that drawing, you're traveling eastbound direction and you want to turn northbound onto Rutherford, what you would do is follow through the intersection along that green area to the queue box, and then wait till the signal indication changed for north-south, and then carry on through along Rutherford Road. One change we're making to this design, we're asking WSP to consider the same sort of treatment if you're traveling along Rutherford, because Rutherford has existing bicycle lanes, so we're going to ask for that same treatment for Rutherford to deal with the left turns in a 2-stage. And the final design drawing, next slide please, is just illustrating, this is Hanover at Central Park, the bottom half of the design, and it's just giving it an alternate to the left turn queue box. So this is something very similar to what's out there now. What we've done here is a queue box. That green area is actually intended for cyclists to position themselves ahead of vehicles, so they get the head start at the turn of a green light. So really, that's just a quick overview of one section of the design. Given that we had limited time today, I didn't want to spend too much time on detailed designs with sort of getting feedback on the design. But what I can commit to is maybe setting up a workshop style session. Now that we have something a little more concrete, all of the designs are coming together. Maybe over the course of the next month or two, we can set up a workshop, and maybe it could be our next subcommittee meeting in November. Whatever it is, maybe we can set something up a little more formally, and I can sort of get some feedback from the committee members on some of these design features. The next slide, please. So our next backdrop, this is a pretty cool, neat feature. This is new traffic control signals that were implemented on Countryside and Sunny Meadow. So within the design here, what we've incorporated is a bicycle detection marking. One of my biggest pet peeves, traveling throughout the city by bike, is that all of these side streets to arterial roads, I'm constantly looking for a button to activate, some green time on a side street if there's no cars present, right? So this one ensures that detections, provided specifically for a cyclist, and then it gives the cyclist that guidance on where they should remain in a lane to get detected. So pretty cool, neat feature being applied to our new traffic control signals. Next slide, please. So the last set of information that we shared with Council was an update or a summary of budget implications related to AT infrastructure, and provided a quick highlight of some of the 2019 and 2020 budget requests. As you can see, it's not really cut and dry, a lump sum for AT on an annual basis. There's a number of programs, obviously the two top bullets we discussed earlier that are dedicated solely to AT, and that's the Fixit program and the Big Ask program. But following that, we've got a reoccurring annual sidewalk program where we invest $1.25 million in 2019, $600,000 in 2020. There's an annual control pedestrian crossing, which is a reoccurring $50,000 a year. And that's really dedicated to, some of the recommendations that might come out of a traffic study with our colleagues in our traffic operations group, or sort of pre-planned stuff and coming out of the active transportation master plan. Annual road resurfacing program, although the total amount of that resurfacing is $15 million per year, that money now includes, curb depressions, painted bike lanes, urban shoulders, all of that stuff that's, coming out and we're seeing this year, on North Park and Central Park. Road reconstruction, budget allocations for Chinguacousy Road, north of Wanlis. Castlemore, we talked about earlier, between McVean and Goreway. Cottrell construction, that's planned construction between Humber West and Goreway. We're currently finalizing designs. That'll include a multi-use path. The McLaughlin Road reconstruction, we've seen, a backdrop picture of that. Again, a reconstruction that's almost complete between Wanlis and Mayfield. All sorts of valley land development projects, whether they're through a design stage or construction stage. Riverstone, the Etobicoke Creek Trail connection to the CAA Center. Riverstone, design and construction. There's an item for both design and construction at Riverstone. A Fletcher's Creek, the extension of Fletcher's Creek through the Sheridan College with a connection into the college, as well as a Bramley GO transit connection with connecting all of the Esker Lake Trail, Dondone Trail, and Chinguacousy Trail that all seem to culminate sort of at that, can't think of the recreation center, the old burned down recreation ice rink. Anyways, regardless, near Avondale.
Victoria Park.
Yes, Victoria Park, that's it. So, again, all of these pieces are all budget items included within the last 2 years that are implications from active transportation projects. Next slide, please. One of our last backdrops, this is the Etobicoke Creek Trail, paved north of Mayfield Road. It was paved late 2019. Next slide, please. So on a go forward position, the report actually did commit to, and staff committed to, an active transportation annual report. So to be delivered in the first quarter of each year, it's going to summarize the scope of the active transportation elements implemented in the preceding year, as well as outlining a proposed program for the coming year. And really what this is going to do is fill in a gap and provide a great opportunity to, one, engage the public and inform the public. Because we're getting a lot of backlash when we're going to construct, and we're not doing the greatest job at necessarily communicating and engaging people in the process. So I think specifically to BSAC, we've got to work through a process, and maybe, our next meeting or our next subcommittee meeting, we can have some of those discussions on how we, formalize a process to get that engagement, as well as a schedule on when you could see, some planned work for next year, as well as some of the summary of some of the stuff we did this past year. So next slide, please. So I've got a bunch of more pictures that I wanted to share with you. This is Castlemore, a different type of approach where we try to separate pedestrians and cyclists at the intersection. Next slide, please. This is the bicycle lane. So we did a road diet and introduced buffered bike lanes on Guru Nanak Street between Dixie and Great Lakes Drive. Next slide, please. North Park Drive, bicycle lane. So again, buffered bicycle lane. This is the second.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it looks like Nelson, I think we've lost you, Nelson. Okay.
That's all I had for you. I'm not sure if we had time for questions. Tammy, I'll leave that up to you, but thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a reminder, we do have 30 minutes pressing, 40 minutes to review 7 items, 6 of which are discussion items, 1 piece of correspondence. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
We do have previous requests for questions. If you could keep them brief. I would say I would recognize Councillor Santos and then Dale.
I'm going to be very quick and share a lot of enthusiasm. I'm very proud of our city, of our council for acting so quick and the momentum we have on active transportation. So congratulations, Nelson and team. Quick question, but funding opportunities for the future in terms of infrastructure funding available from the federal government. I know that they put forward some funding. If you could just give us a quick update on how that's going. And then finally, a question on some comments made by Kevin Montgomery to council before about micromobility and its impact on the transportation master plan that's supposed to be developed in 2023, but also what that means for us as we're developing all these new active transportation infrastructure. And we are pushing as well at the region in terms of the revision of bylaws for development charges to also incorporate funding of active transportation infrastructure into development charges. And then today we got a comment on social media from a resident who's very concerned about that intersection at the Bramley GO station, particularly at Bramley and Steele. So it's nice to see that that's on the list. And finally, I am so happy to see that data screen on slide number 13 that shows the ridership growth on those bike lanes we've installed. That's it. Thanks.
Nelson, do you have any comments before Dale's question?
Sure. With respect to the funding streams, we had two potential funding streams that we have a look at. We're having a look at, and we provided a project list through our government relations group, and they're coordinating the submission for both of those. So we're doing a lot of the legwork on putting together the project list. Probably another good opportunity to have this committee review that, and maybe that's a discussion we can have again in the subcommittee meeting in November. And then with respect to micromobility, we're doing some cool stuff with our friends from e-Scooty that have been all over the place in the city. This is a great opportunity to expand how we get around the city and lessening the requirement of using that single occupancy vehicle. So we're very preliminary. They've done a couple of demos. We're hearing great feedback from everyone that participated in those e-scooter demos, including a bunch of us that had the opportunity to ride around on them at Kenwillen Square. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward. We have a commitment to reporting to council this year on a pilot project to formalize the whole e-bike share, e-scooter, e-share potential pilot.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Dale. Do you have a question or comment?
Through the chair, thank you, Nelson, for the excellent presentation. And I want to congratulate council and staff for working so well with the advocacy to make everything that's happened come along so quickly and so smoothly in 2020. And I am particularly thrilled with some of the items in the presentation, like the bicycle detection in the pavement, and also the going forward to have the information ahead of time so that we can really allow BSAC to have some input into the future construction projects. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dale. Can I have a motion to accept Nelson's presentation?
So moved.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you please also accept the report that's attached to the verbal update?
Am I still connected?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Barry.
Okay.
So you're accepting the motion, the motion to accept the report and presentation?
I will say yes. This is Ronnie here.
Seeing
Okay. Is there
no objections.
any objections? No
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
objections. The motion is accepted. The presentation is accepted. Moving on to item 7.1, the election of a new Brampton Cycling Advisory Committee chair and co-chair. We'll turn it over to the city clerk to hold the election.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Tammy, do you wish me to run this election?
If you don't mind, Peter, I haven't run an election on my own. It's normally been Charlotte.
So members of committee, so as I understand it, there was a request from Chair Montgomery for electing a new bicycle advisory, Brampton Cycling Advisory Committee chair and co-chairs at the midterm point. Is that correct?
That is correct, Peter.
So then I will open the floor. Are there any nominees? And members of committee can nominate another person. If another person is nominated, I will ask that that other person confirms if they accept the nomination or not, and they can nominate themselves.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fay, how do you wish members to participate, through chat or audio?
Either of them, I'll be monitoring both of them. So I'll open the nominations right now. Are there any members that wish to nominate themselves and or another member? And as I understand it, there are 2 vacancies. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Fay.
Barry here. I'd like to nominate Steve Laidlaw.
Thank you, Barry. Steve, do you accept the nomination to continue as chair? Co-chair?
No, I do not accept the nomination.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more nominations?
Councillor Santos, I'd like to nominate Ronnie Gill.
Thank you, Councillor. Ronnie, do you accept the nomination as co-chair?
Wow, thanks, Council Santos.
So I'll accept that
Sure, I accept this.
as a yes, thank you. Are there any other nominations? I'm going to be closing nominations. I'm going to be asking 3 times. Going once. Are there any more nominations?
Councillor Santos here. No one's nominating anyone, so I'm going to nominate people. I'd like to nominate Alina.
Thank you, Councillor. Alina, do you accept the nomination?
Sorry, what is this nomination for?
The nomination is for the 2 positions of co-chairs for the Cycling Advisory Committee. We're approaching the midterm point of council.
No, I'm not accepting this nomination. Sorry, Councillor Santos.
I just want to clarify. Okay, I just want to clarify. I don't know if I heard that correctly. So you're not accepting the nomination?
Yes, I'm not accepting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more nominations going a second time?
I'd like to nominate Pauline Thornham.
I would, Pauline, I believe we tried to connect and she couldn't connect to the meeting, so I would like to find a way to confirm if Pauline would wish to accept the nomination. I know she said she was observing the meeting online. We do have a caller on our attendee list. I'm going to unmute you. I just want to confirm if that's Pauline. Caller user number 3. Is that you, Pauline?
I think so. 416-418.
Okay.
6641.
Pauline, do you accept the nomination for co-chair?
Seeing as there aren't too many on offer, I guess I will.
Okay, thank you. And calling a final and third time, are there any more nominations?
I will nominate Leslie. This is Ronnie Gill here.
Leslie, do you accept the nomination?
Thanks for the nomination, but I respectfully decline.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I decline.
You decline? Okay, thank you. I'm going to declare nominations closed. So by acclamation, we have two co-chairs, Ronnie and Pauline. Congratulations. And my advice will be, Ms. Stephen, if you wish to continue to chair tonight's meeting, just till we get to the end, and then starting with the next meeting, Pauline and Ronnie, you will be co-chairs to lead the committee at its next meeting.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I have a motion to receive the election that we just held there for co-chairs. That is Ronnie Gill and Pauline Thornham as acclaimed as co-chairs of the Bicycle Cycling Advisory Committee.
Seeing no objections, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing no objections, that motion carries. Next item is a discussion at the request of Kevin Montgomery as a member regarding the Williams Parkway project status. I don't know the specifics of this request. I don't know if it's just a request of update from either Councillor Santos or staff regarding Williams Parkway.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not familiar with the details of each of the discussion items that Kevin has requested to be placed on the agenda. However, I do know that if we don't have an update from staff, we can defer this item to the December meeting or a future meeting past that.
Okay.
I do have an update, Chair, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee chair, I did get an update from our capital works or the project leads on the Williams Parkway improvement project. And really it's just a timing update. So they are proceeding with their review of the four options that were previously presented, and they are targeting a November 18th committee meeting, but that was very tentative. But they're expecting that to have something in place for that November 18th meeting.
So, being from that information, I would say we would defer this to the next meeting in December. Sorry, do I need a motion for that or no?
Yes, you do, through you, Chair.
Can I have a motion to defer item 7.2 to the December meeting?
That meeting will be December 15th at 5 p.m.
So do I have a motion?
All those in favor? Are there any objections to the motion?
Is there anyone opposed?
Seeing none, through you, Chair.
Okay, motion is carried. Item 10 to defer to the December 15th meeting. Next item is again a discussion at the request of Kevin Montgomery. Agenda item 7.3 regarding the community energy emissions reduction plan. Here again, I don't know if anybody present can enlighten me since I'm not familiar with the community energy emissions reduction plan. And I don't know which way the discussion was going on this. So
Hi,
anybody?
it's Councillor Santos. Because Kevin is unfortunately not with us today, I'm going to suggest we defer 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5 until the next committee meeting that we have. I think it's difficult for us to go back to Kevin at this point to find out what he wanted to discuss, unless there are other members who know specifically on those items what he wanted to talk about. Otherwise, I move to defer all of those items.
So through you, Chair, you need a motion to defer all the matters to December 15th at 5 p.m.
Well, I'll ask if anybody has any objections to deferring 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5 until the December meeting. Any objections?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair. Also, just a quick reminder that 7.6 was added to the agenda, which was the resignation of Kevin's position sitting on the Transit Advisory Committee as a representative for cycling.
That's correct. We can deal with that matter today.
Yes, we can.
So the movement is to defer those 3 agenda items to December 15th, and no objections, correct?
That's correct. Seeing none.
The items 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5 will be deferred to December 15th. BSAC meeting. Moves us to agenda item 7.6. So Kevin Montgomery was the Bicycle Cycling Advisory Committee representative on the Brampton Transit Citizens Advisory Committee, and he is stepping down from that position. So we are looking for someone from the Cycling Advisory Committee to become a member of the Transit Advisory Committee.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we can do a motion to receive the resignation of Kevin, and then you can do both. You can receive the resignation and then appoint someone. Would you rather receive the resignation now and then have a discussion for appointment?
Yes, can I have a motion to receive Kevin Montgomery's resignation from the Transit Advisory?
Polly?
Sorry, was that Ronnie?
No, Polly?
Oh, Polly. Okay. Anybody objecting to?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, the resignation of Kevin Montgomery is accepted. And now the second part of this will be a discussion as to any members who want to fulfill that position.
Mr. Chair, it's Peter. I do see that Agnes has chatted with me. I'm just going to unmute her microphone. I think she is willing to put her name forward to be the committee's representative on the Brampton Advisory Transit Committee. Is that correct, Agnes? Your mic is unmuted.
Alina.
Alina, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yes, I was. I'm okay with sitting on that committee instead of Kevin.
Is there any other members present who wish to put their name forward for this position?
So, Mr. Chair, seeing none, then you can take a motion to appoint Alina as the committee's representative to the Brampton Transit Advisory Committee.
Okay, seeing no other interested parties, I will need a motion to put forward Alina, sorry, I can't say her last name, to the the Brampton Transit Advisory Committee. Is there any objections to this?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, the motion is carried, and Alina is our representative for transit.
Just a question, physically, will I be contacted by that committee to include me, or should I seek the contact with them?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Alina, the legislative coordinator for the Transit Advisory Committee will be notified tomorrow, and your name will be provided with your email and contact information for further correspondence.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Stephen, item 8.1.
We're moving on to item 8.1, which was correspondence from the Alex Terranew, Environment and Developing Engineer, regarding the Riverwalk Urban Design Master Plan. It was correspondence regarding their community kind of outreach and stuff, and I believe one of our committee members that's present tonight has some knowledge of it. Just to put it into perspective for the committee members tonight, perhaps she can speak on this.
I'm sorry, Stephen, Mr. Chair, who are you referring to? Randy?
Ronnie Gill, whose name is at the top of the letter.
Randy, do you wish to speak to the correspondence?
Hi, it's Nelson. Actually, through you, Chair, I actually added this piece of correspondence to the agenda. This is actually the Riverwalk Urban Design Master Plan Community Liaison Committee, and they were looking for a member from BSAC to participate. They actually reached out specifically asking for Ronnie to participate, but I thought through this process we should probably to this community liaison committee.
Ronnie, are you willing to accept this this position, this liaison?
I just reconnected, Steve. I only attended one meeting. If there's someone wanting to join, if they're willing to I will back down. But if there's no one available, then I'll be happily to represent BSAC.
Okay, so to be fair, I will put this to the committee members. Does anybody interested in this position or this liaison for the BSAC? Seeing none, I believe.
I don't see any comments in the chat section, Mr. Chair.
So can I have a motion that puts forward Ronnie Gill as a Brampton Cycling Advisory Committee to the River Walk Project organization?
So moved. It's Councillor Santos.
Does anybody object?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
So the motion is carried. Ronnie Gill is our representative for the Riverwalk Urban Design Master Plan Committee. That moves us on to agenda item 9, question period. If there's any brief questions about any item tonight, please hit your chat box, or if you're on the phone, tell me now.
Seeing no questions in the chat, Mr. Chair.
And I'm moving on to agenda item 10. I don't believe there's any public attending. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair, there are no members of the public attending. We do monitor the clerk's inbox, and no public questions have come in for tonight's committee meeting.
Okay, that moves us on to agenda item 11, which is adjournment of this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick note from the clerk's office. The meeting for December 15th, we are looking to hold it at 5 p.m. Are there any objections from members for the time change, as we do have another meeting conflict as we do tonight at the same time, so we have to adjust the times. If there's any objections, please put it in the chat or open your mic. Seeing no objections in the chat, Mr. Chair. Motion to receive adjournment and the next scheduled meeting be Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 at 5 p.m.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending tonight.
Sorry, through you, Chair, motion to receive the adjournment with the new meeting time.
Oh.
So moved. It's Councillor Santos again.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Seeing no objections.
Okay. So the meeting is adjourned then.
Motion is carried.
Motion is carried, yes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you very much for this evening's meeting. This is a great first virtual meeting. It went very smoothly, so congratulations to all of you. I will just be hanging on for a second as we end the live stream, and we'll be ending the webcast of tonight's meeting. And just to confirm that that is now over. And thank you very much for attending tonight, and have a great evening.
Sorry, Peter, it's not allowing me to conclude the meeting.
Are all the members checked in?
Let me see. I believe it's giving me, I think I timed out NeScribe. That's why I did. It's okay. I will log back in and conclude the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Great job, Stephen. Thank you.